Good afternoon to everyone who is joining right now. We're going to give it probably another minute, just let everybody get in here, and we'll get going at about 1 minute past. Just let everyone get in and get settled. And if you're just joining, we're just giving everybody a couple of minutes to get set up here, get everybody into the session, and then we'll get going here in just another minute. All right, looks like most of our attendees are in the session now, so we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome, everybody. This is our first quarterly Freight Fraud Prevention Hub webinar, so it's an exciting new chapter. We are going to be covering several different aspects today. We're going to kick off with some introductions. I've got a couple other people on the panel here with me today. We'll go through those real quick. Then we're going to talk about this webinar series specifically, why this matters, how this is different than some of the webinars you've seen on here in the past, and then jump right into the Freight Fraud Prevention Hub itself. We're going to give you an overview of the recently opened Freight Fraud Prevention Hub. We'll share out some actual live demo of the hub for everyone. And then we're going to really dig into the meat of this webinar and talk about some real world fraud cases, some emerging trends. We're going to take a look at what's really going on in the world of freight fraud right now. We're also going to cover SCAC Verified, which is a new product here at NMFTA that we've released to also help to combat fraud through better identity verification methods. So we'll cover that. We'll talk about how identities are being verified and what that means for the industry, and then how to get involved in the Freight Fraud Prevention Hub project, as well as taking some time towards the end to cover any questions that anyone might have. With that being said, if you do have a question as we're going through this material, please feel free to drop it into the Q&A. We'll be monitoring that throughout. And everybody here on the panel is perfectly happy to pause and answer questions if we're going too fast on something, or if you want to dig in a little bit deeper, please don't hesitate. And Marley, if you want to kick us to the next slide, I'd like to introduce the rest of the people on the panel here. So my name is Ben Wilkins. I'm the cybersecurity principal engineer here at NMFTA. And I'm going to be kind of hosting, facilitating this conversation. But we're also going to be joined today by Marley Hall, our Director of Communications and Marketing. Marley's been very involved with the creation of the Freight Fraud Prevention Hub, involved in the SCAC Verified project. And Marley, if you want to just give us a quick intro to what it is you do, introduce yourself to everybody here on the webinar today.
Sure. Thanks, Ben. Yes, I am the Director of Communications and Marketing. So I oversee all things public relations, marketing, comms, obviously, and pretty instrumental in making sure that, we are nominated for awards and we are on podcasts and we're very front and center. So elevating NMFTA's brand in the marketplace. Quick story, my history. I was with the Truckload Carriers Association for 10 years, and then I moved over to NMFTA about 4 years ago, I believe, at this time. So really have enjoyed my time here at NMFTA, and this Freight Fraud Prevention Hub is something that's very near and dear to us. So I'm happy to be a part of this conversation today.
Awesome. Thanks, Marley. And we're also joined today by Sean Rasmore. Sean is a principal product manager at Truckstop.com. And Sean, I'd like to have you just give us an overview of what it is that means at Truckstop to be a principal product manager, and a little bit of your backstory, if you could.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. So yes, I'm principal product manager here at Truckstop. I've been with Truckstop. It'll be 10 years this fall. I focus primarily on compliance, but I also work across our Truckstop ecosystem, helping provide improved systems and really focusing around fraud protection and helping participants of the system have confidence. I've been working in the compliance space for a little over 4 years now, and part of we have fraud task forces within within Truckstop, and being part of doing forensics around what we're seeing, continually working on evolving our product. So as a principal, also I'm working on helping elevate Truckstop and what we're doing here. inside as well as outside. And part of that is partnerships with folks like NMFTA. We're really excited to partner with you, and we'll talk more about that. Prior to Truckstop, I worked for Hewlett Packard for almost 18 years. And there, I got to work with a lot of different systems, enterprises, a lot of complexity there, and taking that approach into how we're handling fraud and protections around that at Truckstop.
Great. Thanks for that, Sean, and
Yeah,
welcome. Glad
thank
to
you.
have you on here today. All right, so let's get into what this webinar series is specifically, why it matters, what it is we're talking about when we talk about the Freight Fraud Prevention Hub. If you haven't yet explored the new Freight Fraud Prevention Hub, basically what we've done is when we were in the process of developing SCAC Verified, the discussion here quickly became apparent that identity is one piece of the puzzle, and identity verification is one important piece of the puzzle when it comes to preventing fraud. But there's a lot that goes into fraud prevention beyond just identity verification. And as we started looking around and trying to find like where all these resources are in the industry, there hasn't been one place to go for a consolidated set of resources on fraud prevention. And so that's what we decided to pull together, bring in some partners, bring in the resources that we've had developed in parts of different projects over the years here at NMFTA that relate to fraud. And then also, like I said, bring in partners, bring in some new materials specifically focused on ways to reduce fraud and cargo crime. And so this webinar, we've done our cybersecurity webinars for a while. We're going to add this as a quarterly webinar specifically focused on the world of freight fraud and cargo crime and what can we do to start ebbing the flow of cargo crime in the industry, because that trend has been climbing for quite some time, as all of us are aware. So it's going to take a team effort to turn that trend around. And so that's the conversation that we're going to be having here in these quarterly webinars. And Marley, if you want to take us into the next slide.
Yep.
And so, Sean, I want to bring you in here specifically to talk to some of the resources and specifically some of the resources that truckstop.com is bringing to this conversation as well, if you could.
Yeah, no, thank you. So Truckstop.com has been around over 30 years now. Last summer, we celebrated 30 years in the industry. And over the decades, we have a security team that's created back in 2003. That's when you think security, often you think of information security, but this is a marketplace security team that works with our customers and non-customers, helping understand what is going on out in the industry, helping protect those who have been compromised, helping them remediate those situations. And through that, we also provide information. We have inside of a truck stop and also outside of truck stop resources around fraud protection and things like industry alerts when we are made aware of someone who's been compromised, or the latest phishing schemes, which we'll talk some more about that, making everybody aware of this is what we're seeing. We want to help educate others. If you have been impacted, we will work with you to help you figure out what is going on, give you the right resources, and direct you in the right places for that. We also bring in our information security team who works with the service providers who are hosting these phishing sites and other places to help get those taken down. So we really try to take a community approach, an industry approach to what we're doing here and help serve the industry. So we do have resources out on the site, documents, as well as providing directions to third parties to help others, because really this does require all of us to work together, and we are committed to that at truckstop.com.
Excellent. I mean, and you really do bring a wealth of experience and knowledge and resources to this project. So we really appreciate your involvement here. I know we could talk to you about this Freight Fraud Prevention Hub, and we could explain what's on here. But I think probably the best thing, Marley, if you would like to, we like to actually demo the Freight Fraud Prevention Hub and kind of go through an overview of what this looks like. What are you going to find when you travel out to the Freight Fraud Prevention Hub? Marley, if you want to take it away.
For sure. Yes, thanks for that. As Ben shared, this is kind of that one-stop shop for all resources. So we're going to have checklists and resources. We're going to talk more about the cargo crime framework. So again, as Ben said, we can talk about this, but it is kind of cool to actually see it in action. So everyone should be able to see my screen here. And with that, you will see the homepage of the hub. And you can see here that there are some scrolling logos that are across the bottom, and these are founding partners. So those partners to date that have signed on. You'll see folks, we've got industry suppliers, vendors, podcasters like Freight Fraud Girl podcast. We also have just the NMFTA logo featured here because again, you'll see throughout this website that this isn't necessarily an NMFTA initiative. It really is for the industry, by the industry. So we really wanted NMFTA to take more of a backseat approach to this. So as much as we will be managing it, directing it, making sure we've got partners involved throughout phase 1 through 3, it really is all about the hub and about those that make the hub happen. So just wanted to talk through that a bit. So here you'll see just a welcoming paragraph of text, how you can get involved in some freight fraud basics, just right at the top of that page. Then as we scroll, you'll see the mission, large hero banner, share that we are trucking. And then you'll also see here some staggering statistics, and those do kind of populate, spin up and load whenever you, if you'd like to now while on the call, go out to the site, you will see that those will spin up and populate. But you can see here, right, real numbers, 6.6 billion, the annual cost of freight fraud from our friends over at Atri. Also, that 27% year-over-year increase in actual cargo theft incidents from our friends over at CargoNet. So we will be sharing, unfortunately, staggering stats, and then how we can help to combat those stats throughout this website. Going down, you'll see some fraud basics. So it's not just what folks think cybersecurity just in that realm, right? Things can happen outside of. So here at NMFTA, we do have the NMFC, so the National Motor Freight Classification, where we have the standards for that. So we manage, oversee the NMFC system for LTL freight, those that help decode, classify commodities. So with that, there is real fraud that is taking place there with classification. Also digitalization. So we have the DSDC, the Digital Standards Development Council, which is LTL and full truckload now. And with that, the bill of lading, right? Fraudulent activity, things happening on there. So we did want to kind of call attention to these areas. And then also, Ben W. would definitely talk more about this, but the cyber-enabled cargo theft component of it. And then also right here, this is personally one of my favorite pages, maybe, where it's just types of cargo theft. And with that, there's obviously many ways to get to these 3 main pillars. And that is right there, common types of cargo theft that you'll see. So as we keep going down the page, you'll see here we did want to entice more folks to get involved as our partners. So you'll see a call to action as well as how it works and how you can become a partner if you are interested. And then also resources. So we do have best practices. We've got cargo crime reduction framework. So again, learning the risks helps stop that freight fraud before it starts. And I believe lastly, this is our products and verification part of the website. You can also, again, find it here. So you will see, which I'll talk about a little later, SCAC verified. We also have a helpful bit about transportation cybersecurity and in the verification process there, as well as our Class IT Plus, that NMFC. So with the NMFC, folks think about the classification program most as that book, that thick 800-pound book that's on the dock and that, weighing and research folks and pricing folks use. But now we have that online component, Class IT Plus. So again, that's a helpful product. And obviously there's digital API standards that I talked about earlier. So the DSDC. And then we do have some events. So happening today, March 19th, there we are. we'll spin this up and share it a little later. May 21st, mark your calendar, and then obviously our cybersecurity conference. So that's kind of the homepage overview. I did want to pause there, see if there are any questions for now, or Ben, I know that you've been really involved with us with this website. Is there any part of the site that you would like to hone in on a little more?
Well, I think, Marley, I would love if we could go into one of those three pillars. If you could just show us some of the resources that are available there so folks can get a feel for kind of some of what they're actually going to be able to get their hands on for documents for resources. I know we've got a few in the cyber-enabled cargo theft area that
Okay.
I'm biased towards, but not that that's any more important or less important than any of the other areas. If you want to just dive into
Sure.
that one for us.
Yep. So a little blurb at the top explaining where you are. Also a deck of text sharing what it is that you will receive from this with a call to action button. Also, what we wanted to do with this site was really to meet folks where they are. So a lot of times people may be like, what is the difference between freight fraud and cargo theft? Aren't they one and the same, right? So with that kind of that common types of cargo theft and really kind of doing that explanation, kind of a one-on-one, I guess, to help people again meet them where they are, depending on how much they know about freight fraud in general. So again, with these blocks of text, we will be kind of painting the picture, sharing a little bit more about, what it is that folks need to know. Get in, get out, get the information that they're looking for. So with that, you'll see here how it works, what fraudsters are up to. You also see kind of a dim and grim photo here, as well as some common cyber tactics that are used in fraud, as well as why this type of fraud is increasing, why awareness really matters. Freight fraud then explained. So from here, we again going back to that kind of 101, right? Like, and with truckstop.com, they're a great partner with this where we will be sharing and we'll make these areas more robust in future. But what is load board fraud? What does it look like? What do I need to look for? How do I know, questions like that. So also this one, fictitious pickup. Not everyone necessarily knows what that is and what that entails. So again, meeting people where they are with a lot of these pages.
Awesome. Yeah, and as folks can probably see, there's a lot of resources here that are available. You can dig as far into this as you want to. If you're looking for a specific answer, you'll be able to find that fairly quickly. If you're looking for general information for you or your team, or if you're onboarding new employees who are in roles where they need to be aware of the types of fraud that are being conducted in the industry, can be a great resource to aid in those kinds of training endeavors as well.
Thanks for that. And
Very
as you were
good.
chatting, just going down through these, um, Sean, anything you'd like to add or any section of the website you'd like to take a dive into?
No, I think it's great bringing this information to the forefront and helping people navigate because this is overwhelming to a lot of folks and trying to understand where to start and even recognize, well, how will this impact me and what can I do about it if it does? And what I tell people, it's too late to put the seatbelt on after the accident. So these are the things, understand why these protections are there for you and what you could do about it. So I think it's just great bringing that to the forefront. One comment I'd make is for those who are part of this, provide feedback back to this group to let them know what would you like to see.
Yes.
How can this help you better? Because it is for you. It's not for us.
Absolutely. And Ben, I know that one thing that we've talked at length about, we received really great traction on. We did have a campaign for our cargo crime reduction framework. And with that, I can go to the page so that folks on the call can take a look at that. But anything extra that you would like to add as we go through this page?
Yeah, I would just point out that when we talk about cyber-enabled cargo crime or cyber-enabled freight fraud, anytime you add cybersecurity to the conversation, if you're not in the security field, that can be in and of itself kind of a daunting set of requirements. That people sometimes have a hard time really deciding where to start, right? Where do I even begin? And that's really what we tried to address with the cargo crime reduction framework. We really looked at the different ways that these attacks are conducted, the different types of schemes that are out there, and then we mapped those to specific cybersecurity controls or cybersecurity protections that you can put in place in your organization with a special focus on those that are either low cost or don't cost you anything other than a little bit of time to put in place that really move that needle and take you out of kind of low hanging fruit territory and make you just a little bit of a harder target to cyber criminals and fraudsters. So I would really encourage folks to download this. Like all the resources on here, this is free to anybody that wants to download it. Take a look through it, and it really steps through kind of what is the cyber-enabled cargo crime ecosystem, who are the players, what law enforcement agencies are involved, and then what you can start doing today in your organization to start hardening against these types of attacks. So really encourage folks to take advantage of that resource.
Yep. And then just to share a little bit more, so how you get there is to the resources, navigation, drop down to here, you'll hit this page, and then you can actually go into here, which is download the framework, provides you, your staff, others a little bit more information about it. And then there's just, let's say I'm Victor, I'm going to go ahead and put in my information here. And then also you will see lots of other information. And then down here, we give some kind of breakouts with fun icons for folks to better understand it here. And then we also had the vendor risk assessment framework as a bonus resource. So for those third-party vendors, right, Ben?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's more about the conversations to have pre-contract negotiation or during contract negotiation with your vendors, and then kind of teaching everyone to continue the security conversation with your vendors. Make sure they're not adding weaknesses to your organization, but they're actually helping to strengthen the security of your organization.
And it
Absolutely.
is literally a checklist. So it is a 2-3 page literal checklist. So,
Yep.
And
Yep.
one thing I tell people is, you think about it as it's your perimeter. And as you have vendors, they're part of your perimeter. You're extending that perimeter. You need to understand your perimeter, and is it secure? Is it protected? Your people are part of your perimeter as well. Make sure that everyone is there, because one gap is a potential area for exploit, and the criminals will find it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We like to say that you're as good as your weakest link, and a vendor that brings a weakness is it can potentially be that weak link. So Marley, I know we wanted
mhm,
to jump into some like what is the world of freight fraud look like right now? How is it
mhm.
changing? There's a lot of information about that here on the Freight Fraud Prevention Hub, but I know we also wanted to tap into some of Sean's experience and some of what him and the team at Truckstop are seeing right now in the world of freight fraud. And we also did, Sean, we've got a question from the
Mhm.
audience about kind of some current events and how those might be impacting freight fraud and cybercrime in the trucking industry. Um, One of our listeners is asking about the impact of the Iran war and the fuel price spikes related to that. Are those having an escalating impact on fraud, or do they have the potential to escalate fraud? I know that they're also curious about the cybersecurity threats related to that, and I can very quickly say that we absolutely are seeing an uptick in kind of the cyber risk landscape right now related to that. Being critical infrastructure, we're kind of a named target by either Iranian-backed or Iranian sympathetic cyber actors. So I would absolutely say that is changing the cybersecurity landscape. But what are your thoughts, Sean, on
Yeah.
how that might be impacting the fraud landscape?
So we haven't seen anything that you can obviously draw correlation to it. The phishing and other attacks that we've been seeing are at higher levels than ever seen, and the methods being used are more sophisticated than ever. What I can say is that when there is turmoil or chaos, that's when the criminals, they like to go in and hide amongst that. The uncertainty is when they will go and attack. The You'll see correlations, and we talk about fuel. And as a carrier, be on the lookout for scams around fuel cards, things like that. They're going to try and hit people that have interests that are trying to uh, survive through what's going on, high fuel card or high fuel prices. Who can we exploit in this to either do takeovers because of fuel cards or go after the fuel card companies as well. So there will be things that we at Truckstop won't see immediately on our side within the load board and our onboarding systems, but we'll see the other effects and we'll start to hear from folks being compromised. And so we expect to see elevation. It may not be on the front. It's going to be something that carries through in any of these periods of uncertainty.
Yeah, and I think that's the case. We see that with scams across the board. Is anytime there's some sort of a an event that causes an upheaval out in the real world, fraudsters take advantage of that. Whether it's a natural disaster or a conflict, any type of disruption like that. So it's definitely elevated risk. What are
Exactly.
some of the other kind of emerging trends that you've seen over the recent months in the fraud landscape? Obviously we see the numbers ticking up. We see,
Yeah.
that's a negative trend that we've seen. But what are some of the things that you're watching at Truckstop?
Yeah. The phishing, the spoofing of websites, the spoofing of emails, uh, and those being used as a way to capture credentials that then are used to uh, take over identities and gain access to systems. That's been increasing. All the innovations that we're seeing on that are helping us build new technologies faster. It's enabling the criminals who have a single mindset of getting your identity and stealing loads or stealing money. It's helping them as well. So they've been it's been getting more and more sophisticated. If anyone saw the Diesel Vortex article on Have I Been Squatted, check it out. Uh, what they went through, and this is one where multiple different groups came together and they end up taking down a ring that showed the tactics. Those are what we're seeing, and just the level of sophistication. And they're things that you hear maybe from a cyber perspective of Trojans and viruses, and those we're hearing as well. When we get reports from customers and non-customers that they've been compromised, there are viruses that are sitting in systems that your antivirus systems or tools are not catching. These are very smart tools that are out there that are designed to cloak themselves and hide. And then these bad actors are very strategic and tactical on who they're going after. It isn't like spam the scam out as much as we're going after this and we're going to work on exploiting that and hide. So that's really the things that we've been seeing. Just it's extremely difficult to be able to detect. One other thing that we've noticed, a lot of folks will have do IP filtering and VPN filtering. What we're seeing some of these tactics, they can mask the connection method even. So you're blocking out VPNs or proxies. Well, it looks like it is a cell phone that is connecting into your system. And so they are really able to, the more sophisticated, organized units hide. And so it's even more important to have the conversations with individuals. Relationships is a key piece on this. You can't, everyone's been trying to automate and streamline their processes to be efficient, which then opens up more opportunities for exploitation.
Yeah. And I know we've got a listener with a question related to AI, and they're asking if you're seeing AI assisted attacks. I know on the cybersecurity front, we're certainly seeing an impact from AI and kind of the speed of attack, the scale of attack, and the ability of the bad actors to reverse engineer a vulnerability into an exploit very quickly. How are you seeing the impact of AI in the fraud world?
It's similar on that. The ability for someone to be able to quickly produce a site that looks functional. There's AI tools that you could use for creating rapid prototyping for products. Well, they're using that to create their own products that are impersonating a legitimate product out there. And then the domain will be slightly different, or the email to be look very similar. And so the tools allow them to accelerate the productization and commercialization of these exploits that they're getting out there. These are whole businesses that have, I'm sure, someone like me working as a product manager of their tools. But AI is definitely helping assist in that. And I don't know how much there's machine learning, there's pieces in the tools that are sitting, these Trojans that are sitting in there and learning and able to suppress themselves for to be undetected at certain times. And these are some things that were out in that article. It's they know the things that are looked for and will know how to hide around it. And then you prompt your AI engine to build something that cannot be detected. And so it's really accelerating that. I haven't heard anything of the voice AI or video AI type of tools to impersonate somebody, but as anyone who's seen some of those videos that are out there of celebrities and everything else and how real it looks, well, that's inspiration for a criminal to be able to use that same thing to get what they need.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something that everyone needs to have on their radar as a capability that they need to be kind of thinking about and building protections around in their processes. Is, what are some kind of tripwires that you can put around, even if a voice might sound legitimate? Do you have the controls in your organization if someone calls in to still have some security around actions that are taken in response to that call? I think that really comes down to process at that point.
Yeah, and a key thing here from you heard the term posture, and it's like, but it's really stability and minimizing impact if there is a compromise is a key thing. It is not a if I'm going to be compromised, but when, and when it happens, how do I minimize the blast radius of that exploitation?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I'm curious, Sean, if because obviously you see a lot of cases of fraud, and has there been anything that's really kind of struck you as out of the norm, unusual, surprising in a recent case that you haven't seen before? Like, is there an evolution around the kind of the novel types of attacks you're seeing?
The there's emails, just the email looking legitimate, and uh, here's on how they got access to these kind of emails that seem to be more of an internal email that is being sent by a customer. There are pieces of that which makes you think that something up the chain was exploited and then used to manifest something to look legitimate to then be used to compromise a carrier in this instance. So uh, that's something that's been uh, unique and interesting. The most novel to me, though, was the being able to mask your connection method, masking of connection location. Had they been able to do that for a while, but the actual method is what is striking to me. And it's like, okay, how far can you go? What can you do to be able to detect um, that this is not who they say they are from a device connection perspective?
And is that the reason that, because I know you'd spoken to blocking VPN connections or blocking proxy connections. Why, if someone's not familiar with those, why is that important from a fraud perspective to block somebody trying to connect using a VPN?
Well, when first I want to make a comment, so doing wholesale blocking of things like VPN, proxies, or even like virtual phone, which non-fixed VoIP, which means it is like your Google Voice. If you do a wholesale block of that, there are legitimate usages of that. And I don't think, well, one, it's not effective, and two, it is destructive to those call centers are using these as ways to be able to have people connecting. But so for virtual private networks and proxies, uh, there's legitimate usages of that, and it's ways of being able to well, you can use it to mask your location, but it also can be used for just filtering connections and that traffic. Just bad actors use it as a way to hide. Um, the key thing is that you need to know, okay, where are they coming from? Where are they connecting from? So from an IT security standpoint or a system process standpoint, have a way to require the location to be shared before certain sensitive actions can be accomplished. Before someone can do something, there's certain things that, okay, if they get in, it's not a high risk, but these are high risk actions. We need to have increased restrictions around that. But I think some of this, when we see just technology providers and even companies, they start to get desperate. They don't know where to start, what to do, and they start just locking every door and doing everything they can, and that prohibits business. You got to have that right kind of balance and strategic, intelligent protections and seeing a visualization around what's going on. This is the think of the autonomous car, and if you're not watching, you don't have your hands ready to grab the steering wheel in case something goes south. Like you have folks taking these protections and using it as their silver bullet, saying, "Hey, I got this in place. I'm safe." Like you still need to pay attention and be aware to watch for certain signals.
Absolutely. Yeah, the secret in any kind of security is balancing it against the business needs, and like you said, you've got to right size it, but you have to also stay vigilant even when you
Yeah.
have controls in place that are addressing current threats. You need to, number one, be aware of the threat landscape changing, because it's never static. There's something
Yeah.
new happening all the time. You've got to adjust your security around that. But you mentioned something as far as staying aware in a strategic sense of what's going on in the fraud. I would call it almost the fraud industry, if we can
Yeah.
if we can go that far. Um, does that involve relationships with law enforcement, intelligence sharing with law enforcement? We've got a listener question on kind of relationships with state, federal, and local law enforcement and how that plays into either your process or the greater trucking industry as a whole, and the efforts to prevent fraud.
Yeah, this is a industry community effort, which includes federal and local law enforcement. And part of this, when we look at how and why is fraud so more prevalent now than before, because it's always been around. There's been double brokering, there's been cargo theft, and part of it is opportunity. Part of it is also repercussions, and you have stolen load versus some other kind of crime. There's challenges there, but knowing who to go to if you do have something, and what are your options. So if you have a stolen load or your identity has been stolen, who can you go to from a law enforcement standpoint, from a federal standpoint? We work with local and federal law enforcement, working with them, helping them see what we see, because you need all the eyes watching this and communicating with each other, not have silos, because then you have silo protections that then can be exploited. But we work with them; they inform us as well of things that they're seeing, and it is this community effort, and that's what we're with this partnership with NMFTA looking to achieve. And for customers or for companies out there not knowing where to start, yeah, you look locally, look at the service providers. You mentioned Verisk. They have things with the cargo net as a way of tools to get access to local law enforcement and federal law enforcement as necessary there. You're not going to be able to do this alone. And so seeking that out, but that's where you have resources out in the hub here on where to go, who to talk to. If you have an incident, have a plan. It's like your fire safety plan, where if there is a fire, what do you do? Like, well, if you have a stolen load, what do you do? Or if you have a cyber threat, what do you do? And being able to handle it, even if you're a company of four, you should still have plans in place. You don't have an information security department.
Right. Right. No, and NMFTA has worked quite a bit with FBI and DHS, TSA on a number of cargo crime projects, initiatives, discussions. And one of the things that we hear consistently from both the federal level and some of the local law enforcement is don't wait until an incident happens to build that relationship. because
Yep.
you can still build a relationship with your regional FBI field office. You can build a relationship with local law enforcement before the incident happens. And one of the things that is really helpful is, sharing information with law enforcement. They can then share information with the community at large as far as trends and techniques that are happening. But we as an industry, we want to be educating law enforcement on the types of fraud that we're seeing and the types of cargo theft that we're seeing,
Yeah.
because that just helps them do their job as well. So I think that's an important point, is to establish those relationships in advance.
Well, and beyond law enforcement, even the government, federal government and local government, understanding the magnitude of this. I know there are, um, not everyone wants to report stolen loads or the financial impact, but they need to understand this to understand how it's affecting the economy and affecting these industries. And to mention that this is a critical utility of the U.S. moving freight, and they need to understand the magnitude of that in order. They're funded resources, even FMCSA, like they're funded resources that have certain jurisdictions. But if they don't have the ammunition to back up what they need to be able to do, there's only so far that they can go.
100%. And Marley, I want to get into our conversation about identity verification in just a minute, but we had one other question come in that I do want to address before we move on. Um, it's on this idea of information sharing and intelligence sharing. We've got a questioner mentioning that in aviation, financial, and some other industries, there's the information sharing and analysis centers, the ISACs. And they're curious if there's something like that for cargo or ground transport specifically. And I just want to address that because that's one of the things that we have really found missing is, we have an ISAC for auto, we have an ISAC for kind of the public transit, rail and busing transit, but there really isn't a resource for the trucking community specifically in that capacity. And NMFTA is in the process of exploring some options there to kind of bring a cyber intelligence and a kind of cargo crime intelligence to the community. So definitely stay tuned on that. This does play into that, this freight fraud prevention hub, the partnerships and the resources that are available here. But I would agree that there's a need for better intelligence sharing in the industry. I don't know, Sean, if you're seeing kind of similar on that front.
Yeah, similar. And yesterday we were talking about this from a safety and identity risk perspective, and just comparing aviation to transportation, just the difference there, and really the number of trucks that move down our highways compared to the number of planes that fly in the airways. Really, there should be an elevated sense around jurisdiction and oversight of that, as well as a community of communicating together to help come together. And yes, we can still compete, or we communicate and work together on sharing information. And within Truckstop, we have methods for you to be able to report when something has happened, whether it's stolen load or other types of things, and we will go do due diligence around it to verify that it's legitimate, to make sure the parties involved have been spoken with. As well as we need to have the information so that we can understand and help improve protections, and then spread that knowledge across the industry. But it is definitely something that is lacking, and something that we feel very strongly with at Truckstop.com is bringing that all together.
But Marley, I know we could talk about trends and incidents and all of that for as much time as we have to talk about this. But
Mhm.
I want to spend a few minutes talking about identity, the importance of identity verification in fraud prevention, because really, and Sean, you hit on this earlier. It's about relationships, it's about identity, it's about knowing that you're dealing with who you think you're dealing with. And there's historically been some gaps in the identity verification in that we identified in the SCAC space, Marley. And I want to give you a couple minutes to sort of talk through what is the new SCAC verified that NMFTA is doing, and
Mhm.
how does that impact freight fraud?
Sure. Yep. So it is kind of that perfect merriment, right? Where as soon as we did internally, we started having conversations about the Freight Fraud Hub. And then we also were talking in tandem about SCAC Verified and this new product and the need for something like this in the marketplace. So throughout our conversations, we did determine that a good time to launch both would be together. So they are together but separate. But you did notice, most of you, as we went through the actual hub walkthrough of the website, I did touch on the products and verification component, and then also some of the sections in which, and one of those was SCAC verified. So SCAC verified, in the easiest terms, is actually the SCAC lookup tool, just enhanced, rebranded. So if many of you are familiar with that product, at the core, that is kind of where it's just a new iteration of that. So you can see here, it just provides a fast, easy access to those SCACs. So the standard carrier alpha code info, I will be sharing on the next slide, a snapshot, of what we actually see in the back end in the dashboard. And you'll see there MC number, DOT, if the SCAC is active, or if it is obviously not active, it will be flagged with a nice little exclamation point icon. So there are some identifiable features that you will be seeing there. Also, in the same vein, we do have the SCAC ID verification component. So you're probably like, what's the difference? The SCAC ID verification portion is we have a third party partner persona who will be providing us with the process of whenever a driver is applying, they are going to have to go through a series of things to be able to validate them. One of them is kind of a selfie, importing, kind of taking a photo of their government issued ID. So again, it's kind of that verification process in the very beginning from the start. So with that, you'll see here, confirms the identity of the individual that is requesting, representing, or managing the SCAC. And it's just that verification layer that we felt was needed with the freight fraud component happening now. With that, I'll go ahead and share the other slide. And Ben, feel free to hop in on this as I go down through it. But you can see here, there's an area for SCAC MC company or that DOT number. And this is the back end of SCAC verified. And with that, whenever this person did search for Atlas Global Trucking, you'll see here that both are in green. That means good. And then you'll see down below that it is verified by ID. Sorry if it's a little small, but if you scroll down where that white ATLD box is, you'll see verified by ID. And then what that actually means below in blue. And then also on the next ATLM SCAC, you'll see verified through FMCSA data. And again, in that blue box, we kind of bake out what does that actually mean, and we provide more context. So it's front and center. It lets you know that these folks are verified, and that they are good and well to use, broker with, etc. With that, on the right side, you'll see though, unfortunately, ATLA has that exclamation point and that icon in red, meaning uh, not good, not something that we would recommend at this time. But the reason for it is you can see the expiration date, June 30th of 2023, because you can see there that it is indeed verified through FMCSA data. So I'll pause there, Ben, if there's anything that you would like to add to this section.
Yeah, so I think the one big call out is that really the gap that this verification by ID process is looking to fill right now is the non-Class 8 carriers that they don't necessarily go through the vetting process. You know, FMCSA does some verification on their end, and for a non-Class 8 carrier, they may not have gone through that kind of verification process. And so many of them do have SCAC codes. And so that's where we decided to focus currently with SCAC verified is on those non-Class 8 that were previously not really verified very well at all. And that was really the gap that NMFTA identified in this SCAC identification process.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And to add on to that, we are out in the marketplace. So we are in a lot of the well-known publications like Transport Topics, Freight Waves, Industry Dive, Food Utility Dive. So just partnering up with well-known trade pubs to help us to get the word out about this. And then also some of those ones are the non-class 8 carriers. Or those that are driving for non-class 8 carriers will be reading. So you may be noticing some paid advertisements about this ID verification component in due time.
Very good. So, Marley, if
Hmm.
somebody wants to get involved, how
Yes.
do they get involved?
Yep. So here we have provided the URL once more that I went through earlier. So freightfraudhub.com, fairly simple. And then also the partner program. So with the partner program, we do want someone with a vested interest, folks that are really interested in not just handing over their logo and having their name on the site, but actually being a good partner and providing, just like truckstop.com, providing resources, checklists, videos, blogs, etc. So lots of resources. Again, this is that shared eco space somewhere where everyone can have a voice, but a good partner will be someone that will be very involved with us and forward thinking on this freight fraud issue.
Excellent. Thanks for that. And I
Yeah.
want to save a little bit of time for some questions because we do have some questions coming in. There's also I just want to call out I see there's someone in the audience that has got their hand up, and if you have a question, if you could drop it in the Q&A, we'll make sure to cover it for you. So if the individual that's got their hand raised has a question, if they could put that in the Q&A chat window for us, we'll make sure to get to it for you. I've got one that, Sean, I'm going to toss this to you first for an answer.
Yeah.
If you were to give somebody kind of a list of must-haves for fraud prevention, what are the best practices that you would want to call out right off the top? If there's kind of a high priority list of best practices that you would think of.
Number one is be informed, educate yourself. Ignorance is the first opportunity for exploitation. And so you need to understand this, you need to learn about this and have a plan for how this could affect you. Number one, information, uh, and then making sure if you have a team, if it's just you, spread that across the rest of the folks, making sure your people are trained and educated. Larger companies may have annual training or anything else, or they may have little phishing tests. You need to do something. You need to be ready for this. As I mentioned, that this is your seatbelt. You also still need to have open eyes and hands on the steering wheel because the seatbelt's only going to go so far. Airbags only go so far. Look at tools. There's various services out there, not just information security or cyber protection, other kind of tools to help you improve your security posture there, and talk to each other, share with the community, use resources like truckstop.com if you have been impacted and you don't know where to go, or in NMFTA as well. It's like communicate that so we can all learn and help each other there. But if you keep your head down, head in the sand, and not talking to others, like you won't be able to be fully as protected as possible. And also, there is no prevention. This is all around protection and then mitigation of impact. So you need to think about it that way. There's no 100% in this. So you need to continuously be learning and adapting because the criminals are learning and adapting. So that's the key things there.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. And I know one of the things I always recommend is to not look at this as an operational security problem or a physical security problem or a cybersecurity problem, but to understand that it's a combination of all of the above, and you've got to address it in kind of a collaborative effort across your entire organization and not try to address these different risks in silos in the organization as well. Because it really is, you mentioned this earlier, Sean, it's really about the gaps in your controls that are exploited. So it's anywhere where one team stops and another team starts, or one process stops or another process starts. those are the cracks that fraudsters and cargo thieves are really good at exploiting.
One thing I'll mention also is you need to develop instincts. That's part of this ignorance. Is like until you've been impacted, you don't have those instincts, but you need to learn that this can happen to you. Building those instincts and back to the talking to another person, like think about your day-to-day life outside of your office walls. When you're walking down the street and someone approaches you, do you trust them or not? Well, you're talking to strangers on the phone and handing over potentially a load worth $200,000 to them, and they're a stranger until they're not. You got to make sure that you understand who they are. And then you'd brought up like know the right kind of questions to ask or things to ask, and to those instincts, those hairs in the back of your neck. If something stands up, something doesn't feel right, know who to go and bring in to ask. It's you need to also and talk about having processes, an elevation path for someone to go to help to give a second look on someone, or just walk away if you don't have that and say no, there's another opportunity. Same thing for carriers and a good load or any other kind of opportunity out there. You need to pause before you react. I know there's a lot of pressure when we talk about the industry and what's going on now, and there's going to be more pressure, and the bad actors are going to be pushing on that pressure, trying to get you to act without instinct.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's definitely an argument for, the value of saying no sometimes. It's going to be a lot cheaper to maybe have a little bit of a delay and find another carrier or find another broker to work with rather than ignore those kind of warning flags that you see,
Yep.
caution signs, and then lose a load. That's always going to be more expensive. I have an interesting question that's come in, and Sean, I'd be curious on your thoughts on this. So the question is, what if we got every single dispatch and broker registered under a public entity, much like the insurance industry, where insurance agents are required to be registered and have some sort of a background check? The questioner is kind of positing this as, would that help? Is that an option? Is that something that's being considered, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, so there's the first registration. You get that initial registration. I think there are things that can help now. We get the FMCSA out there for registration of brokers already. Dispatchers aren't managed. There's no licensing around dispatchers. That's something that's been talked about. But the challenge you have also in this is takeovers of existing registered entities that are out there. And so you end up having that wolf in sheep's clothing type of thing. So there's still things that are necessary that even if you had public oversight and jurisdiction around that, they'll find ways of exploiting someone who is in on the inside. This is where we goes into phishing and everything else. So
Mhm.
it only helps so much.
Yeah, and I think that's, the point that I'm hearing there the loudest is that there isn't one answer. There isn't
Yep.
a single step that can be taken. There isn't a single solution to this problem. And to go back to what you were saying earlier, and Marley, you touched on this too. This is a whole of industry effort. This is a whole of industry problem that we've all got to be, and I love the suggestion that's kind of an out of the box, suggestion that those are the kinds of things that we need to be sharing with each other and talking about openly to see what can we do to start combating this more and more effectively. And so I guess we're actually getting pretty close on time, but I do want to let everybody know, like you said earlier, Marley, this is the first of many of these conversations. We're going to be
Mhm.
doing this quarterly. I think we've got a slide with the date of the
Yes.
next webinar. Um,
At the time of production, we were May 21st. So I believe we might have reverted back to the 14th, but please check the website, nmfta.org or freightfraudhub.com. But yes, we can certainly send out the link as well to that post webinar. So we could do that as well for the attendees.
Absolutely. And in the meantime, please come out and get involved. The more partners, the better. The larger the conversation is, the better. And it will really help us all help each other to start to change this trend. So thank you, Sean. Thank you, Marley. Appreciate you spending time on here today. And thank you to everyone that attended. As Marley said, we'll send out some follow-up with the links to all of these resources and plan to catch us next quarter for the next installment. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.